In this demo, I'm going to show you how to move the system databases. In my virtual machine here, all I've done so far is install SQL Server 2008 R2. I should mention the procedure for SQL 2012 is basically the same, and I'll show you where it's different later on. There's only one minor difference. So as I said, the only thing I've done so far is install a single standalone instance of SQL Server, and it's currently running right now. The first step to do the move is to do a little bit of preparation. When I did the install, all my files landed on the C drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to move them off here to a D drive, which I've provisioned, and all I've done so far is format it. You can see it's empty. First thing we need to do is make sure that the target location where we're going to move the files is accessible by the Database Engine Service account. So the first thing we're going to do is set some permissions. By default, Windows likes to give everyone a little bit of access, and we don't necessarily want that for our SQL data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the lower privileged users and restrict it to administrators. Okay. The next step is to create a folder here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the instance ID from here and create a new folder here with the name. I like to put it in a subfolder because even though a machine may only have a single instance now, it's usually a bad idea to assume that that's always going to be the case. So if you just land the files here and not in a subfolder, you can cause a great deal of confusion later on if you decide to put a second instance and put your data on the same drive. So I've created a data container here, and what we want to do is make sure that the server's account has correct permissions. So we'll go into the security tab on there, and we'll hit edit, and we're going to match it to what we started with here. So I'm going to go up a level and show the security settings for the data folder there. And the only difference right now is this local group for the Database Engine Service account, and it has full control over the files and the files and folders inside that folder. So what we'll do is we'll create the permission here, and I'm just going to search for it. It's way down at the bottom, and it's SQL Server and the SQL user. Okay, and we'll give it full control, and we'll OK through there. Alright, so now we've got our data container ready to go, and our database engine should be able to access it. I'm not going to do it here, but if you want to test to make sure that it has access, what you can do is copy a small backup file into here and then run restore header only from Management Studio, just to make sure that SQL Server can read the file. But I'm not going to do that here. So the next step is to open up Management Studio and run a few commands to tell SQL Server where to find the files after we move them, because right now we can't even copy them. I'll just show you that. So I'll just copy this, and I'll just try and copy it here for fun. And you can see that the files are actually locked by SQL Server right now, so we can't even read them. What we'll have to do is, in advance, tell SQL Server where to find the files after we move them, shut down the service, and then move the files, and then restart the service. So in order to tell SQL Server where to move the files, we have to run an alter database command, and we're going to tell it the logical name of the file, and then the new physical location of where we're going to put it. So I should mention now that there's two different ways, not two different ways, but two methods we have to use to move all four databases. Master is different than the other three. If you read my post about what's in the system databases, you'll know that the master database contains the paths of all the other databases in the instance, which is why there's a different method to move master than the other three. So what I'm going to start by doing is moving model, MSDB, and tempdb first. And I'm going to do 2 instance restarts. You can do this all in one shot, but just for demonstration, I'm going to do it in 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in these values for tempdb. And I'm going to go into database properties, and then files page. The logical file names here are what we want, so I'm going to grab these. Let's type the other one. And you can see they're still on my C drive. And I'm not sure I can copy that. Let's see if I can. Okay, so there are the file names, but we need to specify the new location as a fully qualified path. So I'm going to grab our new location here and paste that in. Okay, now I've already gone ahead and done the same sort of thing for the other 2 databases. I just need to copy this in here. Okay, so now we still haven't affected the instance at all yet. As soon as I run this script, the clock starts ticking, because if the instance crashes or restarts for any reason, we've now told it that the files, it should look for the files in these locations, but we haven't yet been able to move them yet because they're still locked. So as soon as we run this, I mean, I don't want you to rush, but just know that once you do run this, you are kind of vulnerable until the files are moved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the script, and you can see in the message here it says the file has been modified in system catalog. The new path will be used the next time the database is started. Now in this case, since we're dealing with the system databases, this means on instance restart. So fine. So I've told SQL Server to move or look for model, MSDB, and tempdb in our new location. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the service. And I'm now going to physically move the files. Actually, I'm going to copy them. So I'll just drag them across here. And you can see that now that the service is stopped, we are able to actually copy the files. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the instance again. And now we should be able to get into system databases, and you can see the system tables there. And we'll just go back into the file system, and let's try and copy this one somewhere else. We can't. Now we can see that SQL has locked the new files, which is good. So what I'll do is I will go in and remove the old files. You can see that I did not actually move the tempdb files, and this is because tempdb gets recreated every time the instance restarts. So there's no real need to copy the files themselves, copy tempdb itself, because it just gets recreated. So I can go ahead and remove those as well. Now, since I told you before that I was going to do this in 2 stages, I still can't copy the master database. It's still in its old location. So this is the second procedure that we use to move master. The way we do this is completely different. What we have to do is open up Configuration Manager, go into Properties for the server we're interested in, and this is where it differs between 2008 R2 and 2012. The interface has changed slightly here. In R2, we go to the Advanced tab and then the Startup Parameters setting. In 2012, there's actually a tab dedicated for startup parameters. Seeing this demo here, it should be pretty obvious how to proceed in 2012. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this. Now, from the blog post that I mentioned, when you start SQL Server, you have to tell it where to find master, and then master contains the paths of all the other databases. You can see here in the startup parameters the location of the MDF and the LDF files for master. What we're going to do is specify the new path to the data file and the log file, and when we accept the changes, we don't have to restart the instance yet. In other words, it doesn't take effect immediately. We have to restart the instance for it to take effect. So I'm going to grab this path here. I'm going to edit these. Be very careful about there not being a space between here. So this is -D and then immediately the path without a space. So I'll paste in my path there, and then you can see we have the -E for the error log, and then -L for the master log file, and I'll paste in the path there, and that's good, and we'll say OK. It gives us a warning that the changes we made won't take effect until we restart. So now what we're going to do is pretty much the same thing as before. We're going to stop the instance. I'm going to copy these files and paste them here. You can see that we did manage to copy them because they're no longer locked. And we'll restart the instance. So that started successfully, which is a good sign. And we should be able to get rid of these now. Yep. If we go back into Management Studio, we can see properties on the master database. And we can see that the path has changed to the new location. Thanks for watching.